Hello, everybody. I'm Nakia Jones. It's funny because you talked about Alton Sterling. I am a 22-year veteran of the police department. In my last police department, I was the first and only African-American female police officer. I was sworn in 1996. I'm telling my age. And I watched the climate change between the community and the police department as the years went on. It started to be where the profession was respected. And it wasn't that, I honestly don't feel like the community feared us, they respected us. It's a total difference. I would rather be respected than feared. Because when you're feared, at some point, it's like an animal. You have me so afraid, I'm gonna react. I gotta come out fighting. Whereas if I respect you, it's like I respect you. I don't wanna cross those lines. You respect me, it's a mutual respect. As time went on, in like the early 2000s, I started to see that people didn't respect the police anymore. It was more like, we call you, you're a necessary evil. If you don't make the same decisions that we feel like you should, there's a problem. And I'm like, okay, this is really awkward, it's weird. I started seeing the police become more hostile. And because the majority of the young men when I went to Warrensville was white, but my community was predominantly black. I think I've said on my video, I decided to work in a black community for a few different reasons. I wanted to be a role model to the younger generation and say, listen, you can make a difference. Sometimes I get a lot of you don't like the police, but you have to be the change you want to see. I became a law enforcement officer to be that change. What changed me and what made me want to be a law enforcement officer was Rodney King. I was in college when Rodney King was beaten. And when I saw that, I kept saying, I can't believe that all police are like this. I don't believe that. I watched that, I watched that video over and over again at that time to watch how they treated him. Not only after they beat him, they hog-tied him and threw him off to the side of the road, and officers were having a talk. Whereas that's not what we're taught. We immediately render aid. We immediately call an ambulance, come out here and check on this man. They laid him face down on the ground for at least 10 minutes while they had a conversation after they had beat this man. And I had so much respect for law enforcement at that time. I'm like, I can't believe this. This is not really happening. I want to get in there. I want to show people that things can be different. I want to help people. That's why I became a law enforcement officer. So as the climate began to change, it changed a lot of good officers into having the mindset of us versus them. So instead of looking at you as you're part of this community, I'm part of this community, it started being that you're just in the community, we're law enforcement, we're here to enforce the laws, we can't relate to you, you did something wrong, I don't care why you did it, I don't care why you're upset. Instead of going in and saying, why did you do this, or what's going on, or speaking life, we're here to enforce the law and that's what's gonna happen. It became a us versus them. Time went on, it started getting worse and worse, where it started being people were assaulting police officers, officers were assaulting people, officers were saying derogatory things to people. I had white officers in my department as well as black officers speak so demeaning to women. I mean, things that I was saying, well, why would you say, you lost your mind? You know, then I started seeing officers, not only, and this is probably gonna shock a lot of you, we all know as a minority, we are profiled a lot of times, especially depending upon what neighborhood you're in. But I've watched whites be profiled because why are you in this neighborhood? You buying drugs? Are you selling drugs? Why are you driving through this neighborhood? Whites don't, who are you to tell them where they can go? You don't have the right to do that, so they're being profiled as well. Heaven forbid if you were Muslim, because they were even worse, or you wore your hair wrapped, it was, you're a terrorist. And the sad thing was you had white and black officers treating them this way. So it was racism there too, but I call it the God complex. Sometimes when you have that kind of power where I can take your life, where I can take your freedom from you, we begin to feel like we're God. I'm God. I can take your life and I can get away with it. I can treat you like you're less than human being, and I can get away with it. I can say things that other people can't say, and we believe that we're better than. And sometimes as African American law enforcement officers, we detach from you. I don't look at you as this is my sister, or she's a woman, no, I'm better than you. I can't relate to what you're going through. My husband just beat me. You would have officers that were going to see women that were beaten, and what do you want to do? This woman is broken. You gotta be kidding me. Instead of going into a home where you have a young man in there that may not be going to school and you know he's smart, instead of saying, why are you not going to school? Well, little do you know is that I'm going to work because I have to help my mother feed my family. Or little do you know, just because you see a white person in this community, I live here, I have family here, I have friends here. We started targeting people because we felt like we gonna show y'all, we're in power. So as time went on, I started watching a lot of police involved shootings, especially of unarmed black men. And of course, I have a lot of friends that are very opinionated, and family members that were like, how are you part of this? You know, you're okay with this? And we would have debates about different shootings, but it was always respectable. It was always, I was able to give my side and see what I said, and I would listen to what they said. But then it started to alarm me because I started seeing white armed men go home and go in handcuffs and go to jail, but you have unarmed black men dying in the hand of police. And I'm saying, and the first thing they would say was, I was in fear for my life. They teach you in the academy, in fear for my life. But to me, my question is, if a normal prudent person wouldn't say I was in fear for my life, why is it that law enforcement can't? I'm not being funny. If a female jumped up right now to fight me, I'm not in fear for my life. She doesn't have a weapon. We just gonna fight. I'm gonna get out and fight. It's what it is. I'm telling you. So that I could not stand and tell, oh, I was in fear for my life because this short woman right here attacked me or this. No, I'm a fighter. Well, you know, I'm having a few scratches and bruises. You are too. But guess what? We can live to see another day. So now you had law enforcement officers that were much bigger than some of these black men. Some of them were more trained. We're trained. We're trained how to dearm you. We're trained to fight. I mean, you fight. Sometimes I've been in a lot of fights. So it started to alarm me, and it started to bother me, and it started getting to the point where I was restless in my own skin. When I would put my uniform on, it was not, I always felt like it was an honor, it was respect, you know, because I went out, I really served my community. I started feeling like I was ashamed to wear my uniform. Because at the end of the day, those are still my brothers and sisters in blue. So what they do have a direct reflection of who I am. Just like I tell the African American community, and my best friend will tell you, I go and talk to them all the time. When you act a fool, that's a reflection of me. You are like my sons and my brothers, so when y'all act up, that's a reflection of me. So yes, I have a problem with that. When I see women, it doesn't matter of any color, acting crazy, you're a reflection of me. I'm a woman. So I have a problem with that. So I don't beat between the boards. I'll tell you, I'll call a spade a spade. The day of Alton Sterling's death, I had just got out of work. I worked 12-hour shifts. I rode in my own police car. I was a bad boy. I rode in my own police car. I was a single woman unit. I told you I was in the police department, the only woman. It was so interesting because they wouldn't even give me my own changing facilities, and this was 2002. Wow. I still share the same changing quarters as the males, but I could get out there and do the job just like any male could. I wore my makeup. I was cute. I ain't never been no tomboy, you know, out there in the streets. I used when the big guys were, you want to take, oh, sweetie. Now you know I can't whoop you. What I'm gonna do with you? Karina, you gonna mess up this pretty face? Oh no. I ain't gonna. You know what I'm saying? The young men that I were arresting, why are you in the back of my police car? Oh, my dudes. It wasn't Miss Officer, my dudes. They called me Ma of the city. Ma, for real, I don't want to catch you in the back of my car again. Do you understand me? We got a problem. Oh man, if Miss Jones coming, oh man. Well, I mean, because I really got into my community, I would be on duty and go to some of their homes and sit with their families. I bought clothes for people in my community. I loved and cherished my job. So, my son, I talk about him all the time, he's a junior now in college. He's doing amazing. Amazing young man, never had a problem with law enforcement, top 10 of his class, no issues whatsoever. He came and woke me up after my night on shift, and everybody knows when mommy goes to bed, don't wake her up unless the house on fire. I'm tired, I'm exhausted, and usually I'm going home, and I'm tired because I've walked through hell to get home. I got to put on a mask so my children won't see that my job just stressed me out. I have to put on a mask to let my children know to see like, oh, this is a peaches and cream job, but inside it's tearing me apart because some things I can't make a difference. I continue to go to some houses over and over again. I'm going to tell mothers they got to bury their sons. I'm going to houses where domestic violence is prevalent, and I'm watching a woman crowd to me with her eyes saying, help me, please help me. because I don't know how to help myself. And I'm looking at the man saying, I'm so frustrated, and she don't understand. I really don't want to put my hands on her, but I don't know where else to reach for. I don't know what else to do. I hurt the closest thing to me. So I'm going home saying, how can I make a difference in this? And then I'm having the community saying, y'all foul. We don't trust y'all. Y'all supposed to serve and protect, but you are the terrorists that we're scared of. We're having terrorists on our own soil that's supposed to be protecting us. So it was rough. Now, so I'm fighting like this, but I'm still smiling, going home being, Mommy, I don't want them to know that inside I'm tearing, it's breaking me apart. I go to bed, my son wakes me up, and when I tell you, the look in his eye was fear. He said, Mom, did you hear about the shooting? I'm like, what shooting? So I jump up because we live in the city that I patrol. I believe in living in the city that I police because that's going to keep me accountable. I have to walk out the door and see you. You understand? I got to shop where you shop. So it's going to make sure that my integrity is intact because I'm not going to always be in uniform. My children go to the same school your children go to. So yes, I want the best in my community. So yes, I'm going to look out for the people in my community. So I always, every department I went to, I lived in the community that I served. It kept me humble. So I'm like, well, what shooting? Immediately, what shooting are you talking about? He's like, the police shooting. Then I think my heart was like, oh my God, one of our officers was in a shooting. That's the first, I was like, oh my God. I sit up, I'm like, who? He's like, no, you got to see this. It's Alton Sterling. So I sit up, I start watching the video. And I'm not gonna lie, being in law enforcement, you think like a cop 24/7. So the first thing I thought when I saw the video was, what did he do wrong? Was he reaching? Was it a gun involved? What did he do? Did he not? So I'm analyzing from a police officer standpoint, and the most peculiar thing happened. I didn't see him do anything wrong. And I'm a cop. I'm a veteran. I worked in some of the worst places because I kept saying, well, why didn't the officers just tell him why they were there? Why didn't they give him a chance? If I came to a call and they said that this man was raving around a gun, the first thing I'm going to say is, let me see your hands. What'd I do? We got a call that you had a weapon. Now I put the ball in your court. Now you know why I'm there. Now you know that I think you're armed. So now you have a choice to make. Either, okay, she thinks I'm armed, let me show her my hands. I have a choice. Now if I say, we got a call, you have a gun, you've been waving it around, and all of a sudden you start reaching, now, if I happen to shoot you, it's justifiable. Because you know that I'm telling you, somebody said you're waving a gun around. I need to see your hands. That's all I need. Because if I can see your hands, you're no longer a threat to me or anybody else unless you have some kind of special powers, and we in trouble anyway. That's the point. So I'm watching the video and I'm watching it. Then God said, now let me take you out this uniform that you wore for so many years and let me show you what the community sees. Let me show you what mothers are looking at when they see these unarmed black men being shot. Let me show you what wives are looking at. Let me show you what other people in the community are afraid of because they're saying this is going to spread like a virus. It's not going to only start hitting the black community and the Spanish. In a minute, it's going to hit the white community and the Italian community. It's going to start spreading because these officers are starting to think they're God. So I'm looking at the video and I'm like, oh, I felt so hurt inside. I can't even explain. It felt like I was having a tug of war inside my body. And then I looked down and I saw my son's face on Officer Sterling's body. I can't explain it to you. It was like an out-of-body experience. I went to my private Facebook page. My page was private. I'm a very private person because I put my kids' pictures up and I don't want everybody all in my business because I'm a cop still. And I went to my private Facebook page and I pleaded with the community. I said, listen, I get it. I see why y'all look at us like that. I get it now. I didn't see it from that standpoint. I understand it now. And I got upset and I started talking about officers that are in power. If you white, you racist, and you're working in the black community, you shouldn't be there. You should be ashamed of yourself. And to this day, I still stand on that. If you have a prejudice against anybody or anything that you cannot look past, you should not be a law enforcement officer. Period. That is too much power. I'm being honest. That's the honest to God truth. I went on there, I talked, I cried, I was upset about it. I went back to bed because now I'm drained. I didn't pour myself out. And the next thing I know, at 1 o'clock in the morning, my son was like, oh my God, Mama, you better get up. I'm like, well, she was like, you went viral. I'm not computer savvy, y'all. So I said, I got a virus. Oh my God. Somebody to my Facebook page. I mean, that's what I was thinking. I said, I got a virus. He said, no, you went viral. You on Hip Hop Nation. Beyonce's tweeting you all. And I'm like, tweet me? Wait a minute. What are you telling me? He's like, Mommy, you all over the place. You have over 3 million views. I'm like, wait, what? And I'm like, how they do that? this? I don't have 3 million friends. What is it? And he had to explain to me, well, your friends shared it, and then their friends shared it, and then it went, and then people start grabbing it, putting it on all kind of outlets, and it scared me because now I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, what have I done? What did I just do? Now I'm about to find out if the blue wall of silence is really real. And I'm a woman. So I had 2 things working against me. I was black and I was a woman. And they said, who does this woman think she is? Who does she think? How dare her call us out? Who does she think she is? But then I could hear my conscience and God saying to me, it was time. I had you speak just for a time of this, because what you're doing, you're going to bridge the gap.
Come on, Esther.
You speaking is going to bridge this thing. I started getting text messages, email. Of course, I got the hate mail, but it wasn't that serious. I started getting emails from gang members saying, Miss Jones, from the Crips, Miss Jones, I never thought I would like the police. I can't stand them. We in 2 different places, but when I saw your video, you made me want to go to a march, a peaceful march. He said, and when you did that, I spoke to the people like I would want to speak to you. Thank you, Miss Jones. And at that day, they sent me a picture. And this was the second time in history where the Bloods and the Crips tied their rags together and joined as one. The first time was after the beating of Rodney King, if y'all remember. This was the second time in history. God said, I ain't done yet, but you're going to go through some stuff. I went back to the police department where I had served and protected. I've watched those males' backs. I fought with those males. I prayed for their families. I'm talking about I've been treated in some ways that are undescribable, but I went past it. I got a letter in my mailbox from one of the officers telling me, go join the Black Panther Party. You need to go back and get on welfare, dance in the street with the cooties. You need a bullet to the back of your head. Oh, it was ugly. And I was saying, oh my God, what have I done? I knew my life would not be the same. But in the same token, with the bad was the good, I had a chance to meet President Barack Obama. And for him to tell my husband, you have an extraordinary wife. She's like my wife, Michelle. I was like, oh, yes. You know, I got to sit next to Bishop T.D. Jakes. But the most important thing was, as I'm driving through my community, and though I felt so detached from my police department, I had young African-American men that were bumping their music, that would pull up beside me and be looking, and they had no idea that inside I was saying, I need to quit. I'm not safe here no more. I don't feel like I feel like I'm lost now. I don't even know. Guys are talking about they don't want to back me up on the street. So if something happens, I'm out here all alone. These young men were sitting beside me, and I'm in the car by myself. I told you I'm a bad butt. And I'm looking to the left and the right, and I see a young man and his friends sitting there, and another young man here, and I'm looking. They keep looking at me, and I'm like, and I'm thinking, oh God, they probably seen the video. Oh God, what's about to happen? And he said, Miss Jones. So I looked. You the truth. You the truth. And they jumping out. We love you. Then the other guy on this side. They grown men run up to me, hugging me, crying, and I'm not only talking about black men. I had white older men that were coming in to get-go where I would go get my coffee, and they would hug me and say, you stay strong. You know you're about to go through some things, don't you? I had my husband who worked in a predominantly white neighborhood. His white lieutenant said, I wish I had the balls that your wife had. He said, because some of the things that she said I didn't want to say, but I couldn't. And I started to see the poor. And I started seeing the community. I started seeing the mothers reaching out to me. And that was the thing that helped me. I went through a bad time at that point because I felt lost. I didn't know where I fit. But I was going to stand on what I believed in. So I wrote the book, The Truth Divided, and it tells my divide, why I became a law enforcement officer, what it felt like to be African American and being a police officer. And some people look at you like you with them. And I'm saying, no, I'm not. How come I can't be with both? How come I can't stand for right but also be a part of my community? Why is it that I have to decide either take off my uniform or take off my color? Sorry, my color don't come off. Why is that? How come it can't be, listen, she's in a position where she can make a difference. So when I see Officer Jones, no matter what I know, I'm going to get a fair shake. She's going to be fair. She might get in my butt. She might say, you done lost your mind. What's the problem? But I know for a fact that if an officer's there and it's out of hand, she's not afraid to say, oh, no, we're not today. We're not about to do that. That's not going to happen today because I've had to do that on several occasions. My life just took a change. They started targeting my family. It was really, really rough for us. I went into a very bad depression. My best friend used to have to come and get me out the bed to give me a bath. because I felt like I can't believe that these guys that I work with, you guys would turn your back on me, and I just was, it was terrible, and that was my profession, that was my love, that was my heart. I was the first person in my immediate family to go to college. I was the first person to really hold down a job. My mother was a welfare recipient. I changed the odds. And I was saying, you took this from me. I can't believe this. And of course, you all know I got fired. You don't talk, you don't speak against the police. You don't do that. And nobody called to say, Nakia, you did 22 years here. We want to make sure you and your family is eaten. We know you're a good officer because we worked with you. But then you would have Amy Geiger that would walk into a house of a young unarmed black male.
Come on now.
Kill him. And you all would put up her bail money.
Yeah.
And go and hug her and be friends with her.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, I don't understand. Whoa, why do you, I'm a woman that spoke the truth. This is a woman that murdered a man in his home. You give him, you raise more money for her. You didn't even say, hey, Nakia, here's $100 for you and your children. You serve this community well. Nothing. Nothing at all. But God is still amazing. He's still doing some amazing things because I get to sit on panels like this and I get to speak the truth and bring hope and push hope. My hope is to bridge the gap. What's happening with Amy got with her trial is almost exactly, it's almost the same thing, it's just reversed. This is a chance for us to say, listen, no matter, justice for all, for real. It doesn't matter if you're a law enforcement officer. If you're wrong, you're wrong.
Come on.
If you, I don't wish any bad on anybody, but I think about that. I think about his parents. They have to watch this. They have to relive this over and over again. We get a chance to make it right, and I commend the judge because she's so fair. She's so fair. And I want to thank you, first of all, for even coming, because judges don't understand that they set a tone as well. She's very fair in this trial, but she has to be, because this case is going to either shake us or break us. This trial has the potential to cause a racial war. We see it, but it's a setup. It's a setup. We need to be joining together. It doesn't make a difference if you think different than I. We are human beings, and I'm saying, what happened to our humanity? How come we can't all be colorblind? How come you can't sit on a jury stand and blindfold them? You can't see whether this person's black or white. All you can do is get the facts, and you have to judge off the facts. I ask people all the time, be colorblind for a while. Feel their heart. Could you imagine somebody calling you, telling you your son was shot dead by a police officer in his own home? Because she made a mistake and thought it was her apartment? We are trained. Do you understand that even now, y'all haven't seen me looking back a few times? I've been out of law enforcement since 2017. It's just, we can't help it. We pay attention to details. I've looked at every one of y'all faces when I walked in here. It's just, we're detailed people, and when we're tired, we're even overly detailed. Because now I'm like, okay, I gotta overcompensate. There's no way in the world I'm gonna walk to my apartment and see a red rug there and I know it wasn't there. That's gonna be the first thing I see. Whoa, wait a minute, why is this rug here? Something's wrong. Most people, oh shoot, I'm at the wrong apartment. Have I ever walked to the wrong door? Absolutely. I can walk to the wrong car and grab
Come on now.
This ain't my car. I think I'm breaking in that car. We've done that. We're not saying that.
Right.
But if it was a mistake, why change the narrative? Why lie? Tell the truth, I made a mistake, and if you go in a home and you mistakenly shooting unarmed black men, the first thing I'm gonna do is, oh my God, I'm giving help, somebody, CPR, something, let me get, please, somebody help me. I would be so shook up. But you didn't shed a tear. You didn't even try to render aid to this man. And even when we shoot a suspect that is wrong, we're supposed to render aid. Did y'all know that? We're supposed to render aid until the squad gets there. You didn't even render aid, and you knew that you shot an innocent man in his own home. You sat there and thought about, what am I gonna say? Oh my God, I know when I call 911, it's recorded. Remember, we're law enforcement officers. We make the best criminals. We know. Oh my God, we know what to say. Oh my God, it's the wrong apartment. Not, oh my God, I shot this man, he died, I'm giving him aid. Y'all get somebody here now, blood all over me. Not a speck of blood on her, but she said she rendered aid. No possible way that I shoot you, and I'm doing compressions. Anybody here that knows anything about the blood is gonna start to squirt. Nowhere on his body was there gun residue, but you shot him, it would be on him if you touched him. I'm so upset, but I'm texting my lover or my partner saying, get here right away. Most people, if I innocently shoot somebody, I'm a wreck. If I shoot somebody that they're wrong, I'm a wreck. Oh my God, I just took a life. I can't give it back. Now your mind's thinking, did I do the right thing? Oh my God, oh, they pressured me. I know what it feels like. I know what a 14-year-old girl taking a knife telling me one of us gonna die today. My heart was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to shoot this baby in this house. Oh my God, oh Lord, wait. And I'm talking to her, baby, is there anything, who you want to talk to? I'm scared to death because I know if she takes 3 more feet, I have to pump 2 rounds in her to stop her. I know that. But my mind is saying, God, please, not today. Lord, please don't let me take a life. Because I can't even look her mother in the face and say, and her mother was there. She knew what was going on. I just killed your child. And it would have been a good shoot. So I couldn't imagine if I took an innocent person's life. I would have been distraught. They probably like, she's on Valiums. She on all kinds of stuff because she can't get it together. So I think that this case is going to be like that. It's going to either join us together or it has the potential to break us apart. So I ask people all the time, you all, let's start being more human. Don't look at the color. It doesn't make a difference. We're all human beings. We're all the same color on the inside.
We need more police officers. But I wanted to just say a couple of things. One of them is that I'm working on a documentary project based on my book, American Justice on Trial, and you can look it up on the web, www.americanjusticeontrial.com. And it talks about the current relevance, and one of my favorite quotes that we got from the people we interviewed was from the woman DA we now have in my county, which is rare because over 80% of DAs in America are white male. And most places across the country, the judges are white male. And what my book talks about is how you have to use the example of that diverse jury and what it accomplished and expand it to the rest of the justice system. So police departments need to be more diverse, and every aspect of the justice system needs to be diverse to do 2 things. One, to actually reflect the entire community, and the other, to get the respect of the entire community. And my favorite quote is from the DA, and what she said is, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So that's what that is about. But I wanted to also bring up another example of someone who is extraordinary, a police officer who's still there. He's a sheriff's deputy. And his name is Yinho Ferreira. His nickname is the Piper. I don't know if you've heard of him. But he had a trio that traveled internationally with Snoop Dogg and the Black Eyed Peas. His band released 2 albums that were hugely popular and included the theme songs for the 2006 and 2008 Olympics. And he came back home to Oakland in 2009, and he was there at the demonstrations following the death of Oscar Grant. And he said, we need more, he's black, we need more people from the community, not cops from the suburbs who don't understand our background. And then he had an epiphany, and he decided to quit the entertainment industry, where he'd made a lot of money, and enrolled as a sheriff's deputy. And of course, this was a huge surprise to his friends, and it wasn't the kind of person that the sheriff's department would likely want to consider. He was born in a rough section of West Oakland during the height of the 1980s crack cocaine epidemic that devastated inner city neighborhoods across the country. He wound up with an arrest record. His parents divorced when he was 7, and his mother raised her 3 children on her own through the 1990s. He idolized drug dealers and saw some of his buddies become runners. He didn't do that, but he also watched many friends and acquaintances die before they reached adulthood, and others wind up with long prison sentences, and then was deeply affected when a friend of his was ambushed and killed while driving as a security guard in an armored car. So he saw it from various perspectives. And so what he's done now is after he joined the sheriff's department, he created a one-act play. And the play he plays all the parts, 17 different parts. It's called Cops and Robbers. And it's a fictionalized shooting incident in a warehouse involving an Oakland policeman and a crime suspect. And he calls it a revolutionary look at the relationship between law enforcement, the media, and the black community. And the play ends with viewers being left to determine for themselves, like the jury panel in the 1968 Newton trial did, and this trial in Texas is going to do, who is the aggressor, who is the victim, in that case, the aggressor is pretty obvious, and to revisit their own concepts of right and wrong. Ferreira and his wife, who's an educator, published a companion teaching guide, which is called Cops and Robbers, the Past, the Present, and the Future. And their purpose is to engage kids raised in inner cities to focus on the thorny relationship their communities too often have with the police, and to encourage young people to join the effort to change that hostile pattern. As the Ferreiras say, the time is now. Wow. So, I think we could take some questions now. Anyone have questions? Yes.
Well, we always talk about who is we. There's a lot of discussion on, implicit bias within the police force, and I personally take an implicit bias test every year for free online at my Harvard University. It takes like 10-15 minutes, and you can take it on several different things like Islamophobia, colorism, race, gender, shoe size. Like, there's so many ways to have different biases. And so my question for you, Nakia, which by the way, I saw your video, and then I shared it too, was, see, that's one individual thing that we can do, or that officers can do. What are your thoughts on how we can make that like a systemic thing within the training that officers get?
Actually, that's what I'm looking now to start changing some of the training in the academies, because we do get culture sensitivity. That's basically what you're talking about. We call it culture sensitivity, but it's not what you all think. It's almost like, well, you know that if you go to certain people's house, you have to speak to the husband before you speak to the wife. It's not, have you ever worked in a black community? Do you understand when blacks, we're very passionate people, we speak with our hands. We don't mean any harm, that's just how we talk. But a lot of times white officers, stop moving. Well, we can't, because that's how we are, that's how we talk. Sometimes we're passionate, we get loud. It doesn't mean we're a threat, we're just loud people. That's how we are, we get passionate, we talk. So I feel like that is some things that need to be taught in the police academy. We need to teach, this is how the African American community, a lot of them talk, or this is how they act. This is how the Italian community, this is how, I think any group of people that we're going to be policing, we need to learn this is how they live, this is how they act, this is how they react, so that we won't become fearful. I think we become fearful of things that we don't understand. And a lot of times, me just being in law enforcement, I realized that a lot of my co-workers had no idea. They had never worked with blacks in their life. They'd never been around us. They didn't understand us. So they would be like, why are they acting that way? And I'm saying that's normal. I'm like him. I grew up in the hood. My mother was a crack addict. I watched my mother on drugs. I got it. I saw it, and I kept saying, I want to do something different. People, you want to be just like your mother. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm going to be better. I'm gonna honor her by being better than that. So I think that our training needs to really be, when it says cultural sensitivity, I'm talking about even dealing with women. Dealing with women, when I would see men interview women rape victims. Some of y'all wouldn't want to even, the husbands or the boyfriends will be upset, like, you gotta be kidding me, why are you talking to her like that? So what happened? Or why that happened? You're re-victimizing the victim. Talking to males that are part of, if I'm saying this is how I grew up, man, I don't know how to do it no other way. Why are we not encouraging, yes it is, it's another way, it's a better way. Instead of putting you down, you going to jail. How come we can't speak life into our community? So I think that that's another part of the training that needs. How do you empower people? Instead of saying, how do you de-escalate things? Because we seeing de-escalation ain't working. I don't know, it don't look like it's working to me. But let's find out what will work. Why don't we sit down with people like the regular community and say, how can we make a difference? What can we do to make you feel safer? What can I do to show you that I really do care about the community? Why don't we do things where people can say, this is what we think? We need citizen review boards. And I say that all the time. The citizens should pick the officers. You should be able to ask me those questions. Why do you want to work in my community?
Let me just add right there that one of the things that the Black Panthers worked on in 1968 was having a Citizens Review Board. Oakland had the second one in the state of California, and it's evolved, it's got more teeth to it now, but we also have a woman police chief in Oakland now. There have been changes over the years. We have a very diverse judiciary. We have a very diverse DA's office and public defender's office. It makes a difference.
It does.
When you reflect the community, it makes a difference. And even back in the 60s, we had a police chief who, in the academy, made the new police officers learn about the Latino community, learn about the Black community, spend a couple days on the street with no money in their pocket, so they could empathize with the people they worked with. And he had a lot of foresight.
That's right.
But there's that element. There are two different kinds of really police chiefs, I think, out there, and departments. And one of them is more traditional, the warrior model, us against them, and it's come back a lot, as she's explained. But the other one is guardians of the community, and that's a newer one that has taken hold in many communities. Where they realize that you need to work with the community. What do you need? How can we help you? We're gonna go out and play basketball with some of the kids in the neighborhood. We're gonna get to know you. And they're doing that now, I believe, in Baltimore. They're after the Freddie Gray incident, but it's happening in some communities because it needs to.
And that sincerity has to be there, because not being funny, we can smell bull. So don't play with me. Don't come and act like you want to be a part of the community, but you really don't. Because we're looking at you saying, do you really care? I need to know that you really, really care. If I get in trouble, I need to know that I can come to you and say, hey, I done messed up. I need your help. You know what I'm saying? When I'm dealing with domestic violence and I talk to my best friend, I had women where I would say, listen, when you're ready to leave them, just all you have to do is say orange, and I'll know what you mean. But until then, every time you come, I'm going to treat you with the utmost respect. I'm not going to ask you, why do you keep going back? Who am I to ask you that? I shouldn't be. That's not my job. My job is to serve and protect you. My job is not to judge you. So if you go back 100 times and you call me 100 times, I'll be there 100 times. And when that day when you say orange, I know you ready to get you, whatever, by any means necessary, take them out here. You know what, today you're going to jail. We gonna make sure, I need you to sign this TPO. This is what we're gonna do, these are the steps. Listen, we got domestic violence. That's when a person is really serving your community. If you saying I feel bullied, but dad, I can't tell the police because I don't trust them. I mean, I don't want, you have police officers telling that, oh, Miss Such Such called the police and told us. That I'm not supposed to, now Miss Such, I'm not gonna ever trust the police again. If you pay attention, since so much confusion has been going on with police, the crime rate has been risen. Have y'all noticed that? The crime rate is worse because nobody trusts the police anymore. The community won't talk to the police. They don't trust us. So when you do that, now crime can run rapid because they know ain't nobody gonna tell the police. Ain't nobody gonna tell the truth. I don't trust them anyway. But if you make community policing come back, where the police is part of the community, oh baby, you know what? You're not gonna do that in my community because I know I'll call officer such and such and such. You're not gonna do that in my community because I know for a fact I can count on officer such and such to make a difference in this community. But if you don't trust the people that's supposed to protect you, I'm not gonna say nothing. I'm just gonna keep my doors closed. That's why you would have women that would get shot down, men would get shot down, or people would see it like, I'm not getting involved. And we would say we can't solve a crime. The community needs the police, but we also need the community. You all don't understand how powerful your voices are. Your voices are so important. We need, don't let the police make you think that we don't need you. Yes, we do. Because if the community says, you know what, from now on, I'm not supporting the police department no more, I'm not paying, I won't pay taxes, I won't do nothing, we would be destroyed. We need y'all. We really do need y'all, and we really need the younger generation because y'all are our future. We gotta make this better. If we don't make this better, we're doomed.
I have a question, maybe for you and for anybody else who's out there. When I came to the airport from San Francisco, I saw on BART, which is the train that I take to get there, an ad for police in San Francisco. They wanted police recruits, and the ad had 4 faces on it, 2 female, 2 male, different races. I had never seen that before. It's really saying we want applicants from every part of the community. Have you seen that?
I've seen that before, but a lot of people don't want to be police anymore. When I took the police exam, we had 500 people in there taking the test. The last exam we gave when I was in my past city, it was 30 people. Nobody trusts the police and they don't want to be tied to that bad stigma. So they're like, I'm a good person, but people gonna look at me some kind of way, or either you get the ones like, yeah, I'm ready to go out here and arrest people. Yeah, no, you should be saying I'm coming to serve people. I want to make a difference. If servitude is not in your heart, you can't lead if you can't follow. So my thing is servitude makes you humble, and I think even seeing those pictures, some people like, nah, I ain't getting, this a trap, I'm not getting a part of it. I mean, I have people inbox me saying, if you really for the community, if you really for us, then you need to get out that uniform. Oh yeah, I had community people saying that you ain't really, you lying, the police put you up to this. They paid you to go online and say this stuff. What? You have got to be kidding me, because I'm telling you, the trust between law enforcement and the community is that bad. But I'm determined until I take my last breath to bridge this gap, because there's so many good officers, y'all. When I tell you, I've worked with so many, and I'm talking about white and black, but I've worked with the worst of the worst, white and black. So I get some things are racism, but I'm telling you, I work with some black officers that none of y'all would want to encounter. Trust me. But I work with some good white officers that like brothers to me. I mean, like really like brothers to me. So.
I have a question for you, for the judge. When you say you see more of this diversity, when you see things, and knowing that we live in a time of social media and everyone is doing things is what it makes people look like. And when going back to implicit bias, people are finding sanctions or safe havens within these environments to say, look at us, we're showing diversity. We're giving people with different skin tones these opportunities to be possibly in this placement and have this certain amount of power. But with that said, do you also see that there's a side to that, whereas people are being used as props instead of like more for inviting and open doors to people? Have you thought about that side of it? I mean, yes, today we're going to see more Muslim people, more black people, more Asian people with our population growth within our country. But does that really mean that they're allowing more people to come to those spaces?
It's both. I mean, sometimes you see people used as props, but I think it tends to be when there are very few of them in number. When you have the numbers, I mean, women are half of the population or more. When you have the numbers where you can influence how things happen in the police department, you have a woman police chief, it makes a difference. You need to have way more people from diverse parts of the community involved. And I'll give you an example. When the jury, they found that over time, that studying juries, that if you had a diverse group of jurors, they spent longer deliberating and they came to fairer results. Why? The reason why is because you tend to cancel each other's biases. It's not that you have none, it's that you hide them. And you say, let me look at the facts, because that's what you discuss together with someone who comes from a different background. When you're all from the same background, you might just jump to a conclusion that you did based on prejudice. But when you have to talk with each other and you come from different places, you reach a better result. So they've already figured that out, and it works beyond the jury to all other aspects of the justice system. It can work, it should work, but it wouldn't be just as props. It would be people being empowered from different perspectives.
Using education. In education, people don't see a well representation of themselves within something they have to do. So if I'm taught by socialization that a woman like this officer here that went out of her way and put her uniform aside and talked as a human, as a person, I'm going to see it differently. So if I was in office as an audience as a white male that's been taught that there's a caricature, that she's talking like that because she's the angry black woman, I'm not going to really want to listen to that, right? Because this is where I've been socialized. So a lot of those men in blue and a lot of the people that are looking at the people in the blue community are seeing that they're not really going to reflect the same way, because in our homes, we're taught what we are and who we are to the society. But in their homes, is a whole different perspective. Some of them are coming from different socioeconomic statuses. And so me knowing those things, how I would listen to it. But does that mean that Billy or Tom or Peter would take it the same way, or would they find it as humiliation? Or when we bring in toxic masculinity, is it someone demasculating them because they are, as a woman of color, standing in front of them? Those kind of things and thoughts go through my head when I see those kind of things, and especially with the policing in our own community.
I just wanted to add one thing from what you said. when you put someone in power who is not the traditional white male, here's an example of how it makes a difference. I have a classmate from law school who's Latino, grew up in a poor neighborhood in Oakland. He became a judge. He's now sitting on the Superior Court, and what he says every time he has a policeman or a woman as a witness, he turns to the jury and he said, that person gets the same weight to their testimony as anybody else. Don't give them any more.
And I get that, but what is interesting is that my mayor and my chief are both black. I just wanna drop that right there, so I get it. I understand exactly that sometimes when you're trying, my thing was I wanna make a difference instead of using me, cause I feel like I got a good female officer here, she's good in the community, people love her. We can learn from her. Instead, they said, you're not like us. You won't conform to us, so get rid of her. Get her out of here, slander her, whatever we can do, get her out of here. And we do that a lot. That's why it has to be a balance. It has to be a balance. You have to have females. A lot of females don't want to be in law enforcement. Do you understand that we get treated differently? I don't care whether you're white or black. If you're a woman, you're in law enforcement, trust me, we get treated differently unless you're sleeping with all the males in the department. But if you're really doing the job, it was the white males, the black males, and then the females.
Well, do you know the Freddie Gray story from Baltimore? Well, it's a similar issue. The mayor was black, the chief of police was black, and here is Freddie Gray being manhandled by the police. What's going on? So I talked to a friend of mine who was a classmate who was the former mayor of Baltimore, actually, Kurt Schmoke, and he said it's the inherited macho culture. What they needed was more women in the police department, which they've since gotten. And then they teach them sociology. And that's when they started going out and saying, you gotta get interactive in the community and get to know who it is you're policing. But there was a black-dominated police force, and they were still behaving like the white police force that they replaced.
Absolutely, but I also think you should get people from the community. I can sit down and talk to her if she didn't grow up in a rich neighborhood, and I can say, baby, I've been where you at. I know what it's like. I had a mother on drugs. I get it. I understand. But I also can say your behavior is unacceptable because look at me, I went to college. So we're not gonna let you stay in this woe with me. If I can do it, so can you. You need to have people that's gonna sit down and say, listen, I may not understand, but I'm here to help. Let me listen to what you're saying so that I can relate. Because I think if you have somebody, you say, she knows how I feel. She gets where I'm coming from. She understands that you're more open to say, okay, I'm gonna listen to you. I hear what you're saying. I get it. No, I don't know what it's like to be rich. One day I hope I will. I hope I will. You know, I wrote actually a police drama. And it's going to be amazing. I'll be the first African-American female to write a police drama like Law and Order. But it's going to be so good because it's really going to be teaching you your rights, and you'll get to really get in the minds of 22 years. I should be able to write one to tell you what good officers look like and what bad officers look like. And the catch in my police drama is it's a white family from a higher middle class that adopted a young black male, and he's just been gunned down by the police. And it ain't gonna go so easy for them. Because this white family is saying, that's my son. I don't care, you see color, that's my son. It's so powerful that we're looking now, Netflix is bidding for it, Amazon is bidding for it.
Come
but
on
it's
now.
gonna be amazing, but I know the younger generation, a lot of times, you all are amazing, trust me. But a lot of the times, the younger generation does not like to read, and y'all know that. We like instant gratification. You want to get the answer right away. That's why you have so many things, because we want to get, on social media, I saw this. You don't know your rights for real, because you ask the real people what your rights are. So on my Instagram, I talk about the rights, what your rights really are, what police really can and cannot do, because a lot of things that you think they can't do, we really can do. So we laugh at y'all, we know our rights. We be laughing like, no, you don't. You really don't know your rights, and we laughing at you right now because we getting away with a lot of stuff that you have no idea with, and where you should be telling me I should, you telling me I can. So I teach that. So in the police drama, I'm gonna be talking about rights. I'm gonna be talking about the hard things that we won't talk about. It's gonna be amazing. So it'll be coming out, y'all. Just keep looking for it, keep looking for it. So I'm really excited because I feel like it's gonna help. It's gonna help bridge the gap. It's gonna help. You're gonna see not only, I always tell people all the time, when some, of course you have your radical blacks that are, whites are just, I'm like, let me tell you something. Whites helped us get out of slavery, so don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. There were sometimes whites stand stronger than we do. Now I'm being all the way, I have white friends that call, Kai, you alright? You need anything? We love you. We your voice. You're my sister. They don't see color in me. And I have some black friends that be like, well, I mean, if it don't benefit me, I don't have those issues, or I don't. So it's not a black or white thing. So in that police drama, you're going to see that. But you're also, I'm gonna touch on racism, but you can have racism both ways. You can have people that be like, I just don't like you because of just who you are. I just don't like you because you don't talk like me. I don't like you because you're black and you speak proper English. We are racist against ourselves sometimes, and y'all know it's the truth. We don't stand together, but we want other people to stand for us. We need to come together as a community, as on one accord. We don't do that. And we get mad when other people don't. How can they respect us when we don't respect ourselves? I say it all the time. So that's important. I don't believe in the word nigga. Let me explain to you why. I don't care whether you're black or white. It's demeaning and it's disgraceful. Where the word came from was slavery. Why would you make something that was so tarnished and bad and made us feel less than and say it's a term of endearment? So when I talk to my boys, I say, what's up, my nigga? Why not say, how you doing, king? You are a king. You are not a nigga.
Speak to the king. Yeah.
You are a queen. You're not a bee.
Yeah.
We don't do that. When you have more pride in yourself, other people will respect you differently. People will look at you, you won't be a threat anymore. You are a human being because now you're conducting yourself as such. Don't ever let nobody entitle you or tell you who you are. You define who you are yourself. Okay, I'm sorry, y'all.
Well, you know, when you were talking about the juries and diversity on jury, I think it's also important for the diversity because I grew up middle-class white girl in the St. Louis suburb. My husband and I were recently talking about this. We were trying to remember how many people in our graduating class of 600 people were not white, and we could come up with 3. So, you know, so that's where we grew up. And so if I go on the jury, sometimes I might not even be aware of my own prejudices or biases, and someone like you is on the jury and politely calls me out, and hopefully I'm open to stop and say, hey, you might be right. And then I step back and I learn something about myself. I contribute to this situation in a more positive way. So, you know, when you were talking about the diverse juries, I just think it's important that sometimes people don't even know or recognize that they're
No, we need a different perspective to enlighten them on that. One of the things I hope that you can all get to is that history does repeat itself, and that there's an awful lot you can learn from history. And one of the things I'll leave you with is that in 1967, when the Panthers first formed, they actually formed in the fall of '66, a very small group. What they did was they go after police officers and who are making arrests in their neighborhood. And Huey Newton would get out because he read criminal law at night, and his teacher was Ed Meese, who became the Attorney General for Reagan. Okay, but he learned the law of how you can hold a gun, whether you have to straight up, straight down. You could keep it loaded then within city limits, and so he knew that. But he also knew about the new Miranda warnings that the U.S. Supreme Court had just said, that you have to warn an arrestee that he has the right to remain silent and that he has a right to an attorney. And so he would go up and he would tell the policeman that I want to tell this person that he has these rights. And the other Panthers would be standing there with their guns straight down or straight up. Well, the police freaked out. They had an assemblyman go to Sacramento and introduce a new bill, and it was nicknamed the Black Panther Bill, to prevent anyone anywhere in the state of California from carrying a loaded weapon within city limits, with very rare exceptions. And that law passed as emergency legislation with the support of the NRA. And back then, why? Because the people who wanted to use the guns were black. So all of a sudden, California became the strictest gun control state in the entire country. So that's that history. And it's amazing how these things happen, who's got the power, how they happen. But the more diversity you have, the better anything is, any decision making is. Because you have all the different perspectives to enlighten you. And that's the biggest problem in this country now with the justice system, is how many places it's still elected DAs, all white male, judges, almost all white male in many states. And where I live is very different. Alameda County is kind of leading the way. We also have restorative justice, and there's a lot of stuff going on there as an experiment. But the majority of the judges in my county are minorities.
And see, I love that. I can't wait till the day where minorities, we don't have to sit down and tell our children, this is how you're supposed to act when you're accountable to the police.
Or we don't celebrate that we elected minorities, where it's just.
It should just
we
be
elected
normal.
this person.
We just, and listen, 2020, y'all all need to vote. Vote for the people that's gonna represent who you are. I don't care who you, whether you're Democratic, Republican, liberal, that's not my place. But make sure that this person's going to be your voice, period. That you would sit back and say, I know for a fact they're gonna speak for me.
And if they,
Do the
when you get jury
research.
duty, please
Please
show
go.
up.
Yes, because a lot of times we do the fluff. I don't wanna go, but your voice is important. This 2020, everybody needs to be voting. This, I'm very, very serious. I don't care how you vote or who you vote for, that's not my place, but I'm telling you, you need to vote and do your research on the people you're voting for. Don't look at what they're doing now. Politicians are like going on your first date. I'm gonna make sure my hair is hot, my breath smell good, I'm cute as ever for the first few weeks, and then when you really see me, you're gonna be like, oh, I know you ain't had no hair. You know what I'm saying? Politicians are gonna show you what they want you to see in the beginning. Go back and do your research. Go back and see, I wanna see what you were doing 6 years ago. I wanna see what were you doing, what changes were you making? Were you really for women's rights? Were you really for, let me see who you are before you vote. So that's what I want you to do.
There's a question here.
I just want to make a comment. So I just had a couple thoughts as you all were speaking. I want to speak to those a little bit and what you were mentioning too. I think a lot of the times people will say, we want diversity and inclusion, and really what they're saying is, we want more black people in this room, or we want more people who look like this, and so they're really fixated on controlling like the optics of the room rather than making sure people's identities are not only tolerated in that space but embraced and feel embraced, not just it be like a statement, but actually people in that space could feel that. Yeah, so not only be at the table but actually be able to speak at the table. Two different things. And I think we talk about this notion of, when we talk about police, there's this notion of like there's, well, we talk about the notion of like good cops, bad cops type of thing. It's always like in the back of people's mind, it's like this black or white type of thing. And definitely, like, you know, obviously, like there are quote unquote good cops who are white, and there are quote unquote good cops that are black. But like, what is a good cop? And like, is it the people who are supposed to be doing what they're already doing, like doing what they're supposed to be doing? But I think of it, and I've heard this, and I don't know where, it didn't come from me though, I'm not gonna take credit for it, but I remember when I heard this, it really changed my perception. It helped me like just learn more. But someone on social media made a video and they said, if I have a water filter, I have water, and the water is coming out brown half the time and clear the other half of the time, am I gonna trust that water system? Am I gonna want to drink from that filter, or am I going to replace that system, right? Because why would I be drinking from something, and how can I know that this water is actually clean, if this water is actually good, right? So you replace that, and so when it comes to these systems that are corrupt, it's like a lot of times when people say, oh, like the system is broken. Like, no, it's working just as it was intended to. Decolonize the system, replace the system, and make it actually for the people.
Yes.
I'm done.
Woo, girl. Yes, you dropped the mic, and that, oh my God, like you just gave me life. You gave me so much life when you said that, and it's so true. And a lot of times I think that the first step of bridging this gap is that law enforcement have to say, we have a problem, y'all. We need to come to y'all and say, you know what, there is a problem. We got a problem, because how can you fix something that they keep saying is not broken?
So I just have one comment, and it really is a transition, just taking off on what you just said. So, when you have these two, what seem to be opposing forces, as you mentioned, you, to me, and first of all, thank you both for being here tonight. You're standing in the gap, and you are, not to call names, but you're an anomaly, you know, because as you mentioned, there is the blue wall. So the question becomes, and I say this not with any deep understanding, because the point, my brother is a retired policeman, in St. Louis. And I think about how, you know, he lived in St. Louis, he grew up in St. Louis. He is from the neighborhood, and he knows so many little thugs, literally, and he knew how to deal with them. And the fact that I think he's alive, I think that speaks a lot to, you know, what his success has been. But the short story that I have is, how do we, or who, or what needs to happen? I know what needs to happen is that you just mentioned about being honest about it. But who will do that? You know, in other words, if besides yourself, you know, I hope you're not an army of one, right? Not that one person, Margaret Mead, right, can't get something done, but it's gonna take more than you. And as long as we've got people on either side who don't necessarily have the credibility to be able to say, here's what we need to do, because we don't believe they're honest, either way, neither side believes it, how do we get that done?
I just
How do
want
we go
to address that briefly, because Eric Holder tried to do that under the Obama administration, and what they did is there were federal lawsuits against various communities, and St. Louis may have been one of them, and they reached settlement agreements with the police
Perfect, yeah.
agreeing to more training and community awareness, all kinds of wonderful things.
Mhm.
As soon as the administrations changed, they
Yeah.
put the kibosh on all that.
They went
They
back
tried
on,
to
absolutely.
undo the agreement they just reached
Yes,
in Baltimore, it already been
yes.
approved by a judge. So it's who's in office. The Attorney General of the United States has a huge role in reforming cities nationwide in their police departments. That's what Eric Holder did, and now he's gone, and under this administration, they wanna do the opposite, it's a rollback. So you have to understand where the power comes from and how it can be changed. But various groups bring lawsuits and try to challenge a lot of these issues, and there are judges who listen. And there are cases that were resolved during the Obama administration that really improved community police relations. And now a halt has been put on that aspect of it, but there are a lot of state attorneys general who actually get it. And many of them ran recently saying we need to be more responsive to the community, we have to stop putting everybody in jail. I mean, they had different
Sure,
agendas.
sure.
And so when you elect people to those kind of offices and judges who care about those issues, it makes a difference.
So I get it,
But
so I
I
get it,
also-
let me just throw in real quick. So St. Louis, city and county elected a black prosecuting attorney, both places. The police hate both of them because they're standing for criminal justice reform. They're making huge changes, and if you ever listen to him, Wesley Bell has been on NPR, interviewed about criminal justice reform that he's seeking. The chances are that those folks are gonna get voted out.
Absolutely.
If not, run out by their administrations. And so, again, I don't wanna, I'm not trying to sound hopeless, I'm just saying one at a time, but they have talked about the fact that our criminal justice, to the point of the lady talking about a system, the criminal justice system is resistant.
It is, and
to
you gotta
change.
actually
Incredibly so.
dismantle it and bring it back, and you need to bring good people. You need to bring good people that are unbiased to sit down and say, listen, how can we put this thing back together? Let's get some women, white, black, Hispanic, every race need to be represented. Let's get men, white, black, let's revamp this entire thing. The thing that I was gonna say about law enforcement, there are a lot of law enforcement officers that are seeing this, what's going on, and a lot of them won't say anything, you know why? Cause they lose their careers.
Yeah.
22 years, I
Sure.
don't
And
have
they
a
go.
pension, 22 years of my life, I don't have a pension. But a rich white male will say, she look at her, she can't take care of her family, but I served my community for 22 years. When I got fired, when George Zimmerman shot and killed Trayvon Martin, they raised over $3 million for him. I lost everything. My house, we had to relocate from one state to another. I didn't get a cent. 22 years. I did what they said I'm supposed to do. Get out here and take care of your family. I didn't rely on welfare system. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I feel like welfare should be a stepping stone, not a crutch. You hear what I'm saying to you? So a lot of law enforcement are saying, I don't want to do that. And in some states, you speak out against the police, they will kill you. They will set you up and kill you. So there's a lot of law enforcement officers saying, yeah, I get it, Nakia, we love you, but way back there, we don't love you because I don't wanna lose my job, I don't wanna lose my career, I have a family to support, I don't wanna die tonight. So my community, y'all have been holding me up. Y'all are the reason why I'm still fighting, and still fighting for the officers and saying, I wanna say something, sis, but I can't.
There's a big question on point of responsibility, especially when we use certain words. And as a study of, I study psychology just like my mom, and so like when we say certain words, there's a central thing that pops up in imagery of our head. So when we use the term thug, people see black.
Yeah.
People see black. So like if I say the police enforcement are thugs, or if I say Christopher Columbus was one of the biggest thugs, people are never going to see that or understand it, right? So like when you took that time and you was like, I'm not going to tolerate this, you was no longer a cop, you was just a black woman, right? So like the person who spoke for it best to me is Asada Shakur, and using some of her quotes, you fall from those chains. You unchain yourself. So when you see that there's this domination over people and over a community because people are, if we're studying human beings and mankind, these words have represented like what the N word stands for. Even if some people identify with that, that's what it's going to be continue to be. And if other people see those people and identify them as it because that's what they say for themselves, that's going to be the understanding. It's going to keep having that same essential question going on: what is responsibility? And like my mom told me before, if you're afraid of clowns, while working the circus. So if people continue going into these places of business or these establishments, knowing what kind of people they're going to have to deal with, because we all have a platform. Some people are higher than others, and police have a very high platform and a lot of power. And so if people are not being held accountable for those things, and then you said it before, how can people feel like they're ready to trust? Or if they're in a situation, how they know they're not going to say that they look like the suspect, even though they're the one who made the phone call?
Absolutely, and I get it, just like I tell people all the time, when I went to the academy, you all know that police we totally against gangs, right? I know we don't play that. We even did what they did in the law, the gang law. If you're associated with a gang, you could do, I think, 3 or 4 years just by being associated. Just because if you were a Crip and one of your Crip brothers from across the street went and killed somebody, and you weren't there, but I could say you were a Crip, you could do just as much time. You didn't have to be there. But when I was in the academy, the first thing they told me was, do you know who the biggest gang in America is? And I said, who? He said, the police. I was taught that in the police academy. I was taught that. So I don't think thug has a color. It's your behavior, the contents of your character. It doesn't matter what color you are, you can be a thug. I don't care what you're wearing. There are police officers that are thugs. And it's just, I'm just calling a spade a spade.
I'm Dutch Roman's daughter. I'm really proud to be here to witness this. You guys are both amazing. I saw your video when it came out. I didn't realize when I came here that was going to be you. It was like, oh, I get it now. Okay. But what I wanted to say is that I'm a voting rights advocate, and a lot of people don't realize how important the local elections are, because that's who elects the attorney general, the district attorneys. And you can elect your district judges, and you have a huge say over the local justice system, and then up to the state representatives too, because that's what affects you the most. And then, but the media isn't going to cover that. That's something you have to do as a community to do the research yourselves, because if you care about your community, you want to know who's going to represent your community and tell people who's going to.
Jamie lives in
Powerful
Kansas.
decisions, yeah.
One of the things
We
she
have-
did recently, I was just gonna mention,
Go ahead.
was to make sure that, men in prison got the right to vote, knew that they had the right to vote, which wasn't being distributed you might tell me
Yeah,
a
oh,
little bit
yeah,
about that.
I worked with the League of Women Voters, but we, have a very receptive, director of reentry at our local county jail, who really is all about the European model of justice in the correction facilities, not about punishment, but more about getting them jobs in the community, making sure they have finished their high school degrees, or do whatever they can while they're in the county jail. And we had a mail ballot election, and so there was, and there's an issue with, you know, people getting mail in jail, making sure they get at the right time. So I went to the city clerk and said, hey, this is the problem here. You need to make sure that the people in jail have the access to apply for the absentee ballots, because until they're convicted, they still have the right to vote.
Right.
While they're in county jail, they're not
Yes.
convicted yet. They're only charged with the crime, and some people are in county jail for like years
Yes.
before they even have a trial date. And most people don't know. They think that if they're in jail, they lost their rights. Nobody's telling them. So we told the director of reentry what the state law was, and he's like, oh my God. So we did a training with the parole officers. We trained them how to register their parolees once they got their parole papers, because that's, once you have proof of completing your term of sentence, which includes parole, you're eligible to vote again, but you have to re-register. It doesn't come automatically. You have to know that you're eligible, and you have to re-register. And so that's what we were telling the parole officers.
Wow, you always gotta get your car.
Sorry.
I think we've got time for one more question. Before that, I just want to remind everybody that we have books for sale by both of our speakers. So one more question.
You wanna call on?
No, I'm not.
I'll let you
Oh,
choose.
no.
No, I'm not. That's not fair. Well, the first hand, I think, might be this gentleman in the back.
As a person who understands that I have very little privilege, by the accident of my birth, of my gender, and the lack of melanin in my skin, which is a ridiculously stupid reason to have privilege, as we all know. It's hard. It's hard to stand up to other people who look like me. And you talked about that, you've alluded to that there are people who are out there who are on the other side of that blue line who wish they could say what you said. We know that the colonizers will not give up power until it's wrested away from them. So how do we encourage and empower people who look like me to stand up to the system as well, to risk being ostracized by those who look like us? I mean, how do we empower people who sound like me and look like me to do better?
You gotta touch that's why I say all the time, you gotta touch the humane side. Listen, what's your moral? We know this is wrong. If you were blind, what if it was us? What if it happened to us? Would you want somebody to speak up for us? What if it was our children? Because when you start saying, when I started reaching out to a lot of white women, and I'm just saying, I was saying, do you tell your children how to act with the police? They were like, no. If you saw how many women started befriending me on Facebook, like, Nakia, how can we help? I had women crying, like, we don't have to tell our children this. I couldn't imagine having, I said, close your eyes. What if you had to go home and you knew every time your son put out the driveway, you had to be afraid that he may be gunned down the street, not only by his peers, but by somebody that's supposed to protect them. I had them saying, oh my God, Ms. Jones. So I think when you're dealing with that, you have to touch the humane side, because they're like, I don't want to lose, but what if it was us? What if the tables were turned? And then it's almost like, okay, I get it now, I understand. Yes, I want to, let me walk in their shoes, let me help. And I think that's what, and then when they see how compassionate you are, if I'm your friend and I'm looking at you, I'm saying I'm standing with you. I got you. Listen, we need to do this together, because it's gonna take all of us. It's gonna take every last one of us in this room to really make a difference, but we have to understand our power. Yeah, they have power because that's what the government has all this power. But if you get people to start saying enough, you get enough people to say enough, all the way around, enough is enough. No, we will not vote for you again. You will never be in that seat again. No, enough. We'll vote the people in that we want. No, enough. I don't care what color their skin is. Everybody should have a fair shake. Enough. I guarantee you, we will make a difference, but you gotta stand by it, and you gotta stand strong, and it can't just be one group of people. It has to be people from across the board. We may not live the same, we may not have different beliefs, but it's all about humanity. What's fair? What you want for your children, we want for our children. What you want for your family, that's what we want. So if we can say, listen, we ain't gotta believe the same thing, you don't have to raise our children the same, but we want peace.
Let me just add one point though. I have another book out there, it's called With Justice for Some, and it's about early 20th century trials that resonate today. And to your point, one of those cases that I discussed, and they're all headline trials, came out of the Hawaii, the territory of Hawaii in the 1930s. 5% of the people there were white, okay? And they controlled just about everything, okay? They controlled the plantations, you know, had most of the wealth. And what was interesting is in the territory